to my channel. I am Kathy Grimm and the channel is The Grimm Reader, and today I'm going to talk about Jane Austen July. This is one of those videos where I've thought about Jane Austen and my relationship to her, and I've kind of gathered all my various editions, but I also kind of want to try and look at the prompts a little bit, even though, to be honest, I'm not sure how many y'all really pay that close attention to. So it's sort of a bit of a mishmash video, like half prepared but not really prepared. Let me get started. The first prompt, and by the way, you all know, most of you know the lovely co-hosts of Jane Austen July, Katie Lumpson, Books and Things, Marissa from Blatantly Bookish, and Claudia, who I visited was it last year? Yep, I think it was. And we talked about Mansfield Park on a video. Claudia from Spencer's Library, and I will link all their channels below. And if you want to watch this, the cute video of us duking it out in a very polite way, very Jane Austen way, how much she hates Mansfield Park and how much I love Mansfield Park, it's funny, it's interesting. Going to the prompts, read one of Jane Austen's novels. I actually started listening to Northanger Abbey, which is going to be the group read, and I'm liking it. I've always liked it more than perhaps other people. Everyone is saying how underrated it is, and I think the thing about Northanger Abbey is it's sort of pretty obvious that it's an early Jane Austen. So I'm a little bit sort of surprised at how it's funny, but it's like bitingly funny. There was a quote this morning about, well, just kind of the introduction to Catherine, our heroine, who's basically a basic you-know-what, a Jane Austen basic you-know-what. But she's a heroine, so, we love her anyway. And she's sweet, but she's basic. She hasn't been in the world much. Maybe her friend's more basic, Isabella. Maybe I'm being wrong in calling Catherine. Catherine's just naive and she's not even basic. I don't know. But I'm listening to it mainly, but I have my copy here. This is so funny. This whole edition, I don't know what possessed me. This is a while ago. I would never buy these now. But for some reason, it was one of these somewhat impulsive things that you do when you're, a book person. I wanted to get an edition of all the works, and I went with this weird word cloud edition. And they're pretty, but they have this kind of rubbery cover with little quotes on it. I mean, they're cute. I can show you the whole set. But they're not annotated at all. I mean, actually, print-wise, inside, they're actually kind of cute. They have like a little birdies at the top, but they're strange. Like, why did I buy these? Sort of thinking about how they describe her family, and the way the mother's described in terms of the children. Her mother was a woman of useful and plain sense, with a good temper, and what is more remarkable, with a good constitution. She had 3 sons before Catherine was born, and instead of dying in bringing the latter into the world, as anybody might expect, she lived to have 6 children more, to see them growing up around her, and to enjoy excellent health herself. A family of 10 children will always be called a fine family, where there are heads and arms and legs enough for the number. But the Morlands had little other right to the word, for they were in general very plain, and Catherine for many years of her life as plain as any. That's pretty funny, but it's pretty sort of 18th century biting funny. Anyone who says Jane Austen isn't funny should reread this one, even if it's not your type of humor. It's just kind of, and the thing is, it's kind of sad. So last year I did start listening to Claire Tomlin's biography of her, which I thought was a little dry, but I do remember how she went into in depth of the beginnings, and how there's a certain, just how the upbringing of, and how people had to just be okay with a very high incidence of child mortality, and it made kind of people be more, to our sensibilities, a little harsh or kind of whatever, a little bit more, just their attitudes towards children were very different, and you kind of see that. And I think you see that in early Austen, too. Also, she's just being funny. So I've already started listening, so I'm already kind of doing the first prompt. I'm not going to worry so much about the group read. I'm just not a joiner. Sorry. But maybe I'll look at the Goodreads page. Oh, Lily's decided to enter the picture. She's a Jane Austen fan. Not really. Ah, kitty! She's playing with my book piles. Anyway, moving on to the second prompt. Read something by Jane Austen that is not one of her main novels. Well, let's see. The main option I have here is I have part of my Jane Austen collection is this Penguin edition of all the other works. So I think most of them are unfinished. Lady Susan, the Watsons, and Sanditon. I think they're all unfinished. Lady Susan is epistolary and is juvenilio before anything that got published. The other ones, one novel unpublished in her lifetime and 2 unfinished fragments. Oh, so Sanditon is the unpublished novel. So that must be pretty short. Sanditon must be, and of course the font is tiny, so yeah. So I might dip into these. I might even look around for audio because that seems to be a useful way for me to up my reading game a little bit. I've never read any of the juvenilia. I kind of stopped at the 6 novels. And then something that's not really, actually doesn't really fit, but I'll show it to you anyway because it's something I got last year and then never got around to. It's the autobiography written by a relative, Jane Austen July. So James, I have to look at the tree because you may or may not know, and you probably don't care about the fact that I'm really, really distantly related to Jane Austen. I've checked it today, and it's Fanny Rice. So my fifth cousin once removed, their parent married a distant relative of Edward Knight, the brother of Austen, who was kind of reared by a different family, but they're still siblings. So very distant connection family-wise, and so I'll have to see where James Edward fits in, because Jane Austen was his aunt. Anyway, this is his memoir of Jane Austen, and it's one of my Oxfords that I love, and so I might look at this too. So that's not really fitting the prompt, but I thought I would show it to you anyway. Read a nonfiction work about Jane Austen or her time. So, well, a memoir would probably work, sort of. And then when it comes to retellings, I'm kind of like, the fourth prompt is read a retelling of a Jane Austen book or a work of historical fiction set in Jane Austen's time. Okay, now we're talking. Walter Scott, but he did become a Sir. And I thought, I have Ivanhoe on my shelf. And it's long, so I wouldn't mind listening to that one too, because I'm better at listening than reading. Also, tiny font for old lady eyes. See that? And it's a chunker. Actually, there are a lot of explanatory notes, which actually I like, and historical notes, so it's not that bad. 400 pages, sure. I would like to read a Walter Scott. Let me know if you've ever read any Walter Scott, and if you know about him. He's one of these authors that I think he was the Stephen King of his day, almost. I mean, not quite, but he's very, very popular and very well known. And then now, who reads Walter Scott? English professors and students. So, Walter Scott in July. Let me read it. Maybe. We'll see. It's on the TBR. It's in the running. It's in the running. Number 5. Read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen. Actually, so that one wouldn't quite work because this is not set in her time. This is set earlier. This is written in. He's a contemporary, so this would probably work for this prompt. Sorry, I'm getting my prompts confused. Yeah, 1771. She was born 1775. So contemporary. So that will work for number 5. So a historical fiction set in Jane Austen's time. So something set in the late 18th century, early 19th century. Let me get back to you on that one. I don't have anything right now off the top of my head. So we'll see. Oh gosh, we've had very strange weather. It's hot right now, but it's also extremely windy. And we've had the fire too. Just looking at the gray skies and the wind. Number 6, watch direct screen adaptation of a Jane Austen book. I mean, we watched Emma one year, the new Emma, with the chess lady. Sorry, I don't know her name. She played the chess champion. And it was interesting. So this one, some of the things that I have fit prompts from last year, I think. I don't know what this would work as, but this is the one I got from my half-price haul. Pemberley Chronicles, a companion volume to Jane. This is sort of like a retelling. It's like a fictionalized sequel of the Bennett sisters in their house. So I have that. And then this is going to sort of move on into other editions of Austen that I own, just here at the end, 11 minutes. So this is actually the edition of Mansfield Park that I read the first time, and I actually do love it. And it's tiny. Look at that. It's tiny. It's belonged to my mother probably. It doesn't have any kind of notation that it did. It's Thomas Nelson and Sons. I don't know what year or anything. It doesn't have any year info, and there's no annotations or anything. It has just some ads for some other books at the back. Printed in Great Britain. But it's very, as we say in German, handlich. It's a great little copy, and of course the paper is extremely thin. It's sort of rice paper thin, because it's a fairly long novel. It's her longest novel. And this is how I read Mansfield Park, and I really, really like this one. I wish I had more of these. They all belong to my mother, I'm pretty sure. And then all I have, I'm not going to show you the rest of this one, or at least not right now. Maybe if I do another video, I'll show you the rest of those. But the other ones that I have, I don't have everything, but I have this edition of Pride and Prejudice. And I do like this Elizabeth Bennet, because I think she looks intelligent and also pretty, but more intelligent than pretty, perhaps. I like that portrait. Someone called Lady Colville. So that's sort of how I envision Elizabeth Bennet. And then my least favorite one that I would not really want to reread because I really don't like it is Emma. So this is a portrait of someone who they think looked like Emma. And then last but not least, I have another copy that I don't know of a Mansfield Park. Maybe I did read it a second time at university, because we did talk about some Austen novels in some of my classes in Germany. I never took Austen when I came to the States. Just didn't get around to it, or it wasn't on the docket. And another thing one could do, so for the nonfiction side of things, is to go back. Yeah, we're having a thunderstorm right now. We're having bad weather. I'm always fearful that the power will go out. Is to read all the introductions of these texts. For example, this one is written by a pretty famous guy, Tony Tanner, fellow of King's College at Cambridge and a professor who's written all kinds of works, including one on Jane Austen. So read his introduction on Mansfield Park. And then, of course, let's see what the other introductions we have. This one on Emma. See, here I would just read the introduction and not the book. Ronald Blythe. Emma is the climax of Jane Austen's genius and the Parthenon of fiction. Okay. She wrote it in 15 months and with the dazzling poise and certainty which are transmitted to the reader at the very first sentence. Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, I do remember feeling I was in good hands when I read it, but I just really didn't like the story that much. Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever, and rich, with a comfortable home and happy disposition, seemed to unite some of the best blessings of existence, and had lived nearly 21 years in the novel with very little to distress or vex her. The power's already flickering. It's not that late. Let's see. And then the Pride and Prejudice introduction, which I apparently have read because it's all underlined. Oh, Tony Tanner again. I remember I had a copy of Sense and Sensibility where someone wrote it and it was all about David Hume and about Sense and Sensibility, like a philosophical, and I love that. I love connecting Jane Austen to the philosophy of her time. So that's it. That's my little introduction to what I might be doing for Jane Austen and my little collection. And let me know if you're participating. It's such a fun read-along. I mean, it just is. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.